Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
All right, Mr. DeMille, I'm ready for my close-up.
Dodge this.
Nathaniel, did you know that you can get 48 cans of tuna on Amazon for $40?
Jeffrey, the fact that I told you this last episode means, of course, I knew. I told you this information.
I forgot that. I completely forgot it. But I've got 48 cans of tuna on its way to me right now.
Did you actually buy it?
I actually bought it. It's coming in tomorrow.
That is 48 marlins. Or not marlins. What's the dad's name? Marlin.
Yeah, Marlin's his name.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's 48 marlins looking for their little Nemo that they'll never find because Jeffrey ordered them express from Amazon, is going to guzzle them all down.
Yeah, I'm actually very curious. What does clownfish taste like? I imagine it tastes funny.
That was bad. You should join us next season where we just do live streams of Jeffrey watching movies and eating 10 cans of tuna a night. Like in his underwear. That's it. Just like greasy Jeffrey eating tuna.
I'm going to be like pumped full of mercury. It's going to be a problem.
You're like a thermostat.
I've always wanted to be a thermostat. Anyway, folks, welcome to the Holy Moment Podcast, where we watch movies with you, discuss the moments that work, the moments that don't, and the moments that reflect truth in unexpected ways. Guys, we were watching what Nathaniel would consider a horror movie.
This is facts. Guys, I don't know when it happened, but at some point in my childhood, I became deathly fearful of fish, and I still am. And no, it's not like, oh, if there's a fish in Walmart, it's like if I'm in the water and I can't see, if anything touches me, horrified. I don't know how other people don't have the same fear. Like, do you guys like not care about your own lives? Are you okay with just dying?
I think it's just like the spice of life, right? That unknown factor. Am I going to die today, or am I going to live to see another one?
Oh, so are you telling me, Jeffrey, if you were to swim in the ocean, you would have no, this is a genuine, real question. If you got like in the ocean, like you went out on a boat and you're safe, like the boat's not going to leave you. Could you just jump in that water and just be like hunky dory? Or would that be kind of freaky?
No, I mean, I could totally do that.
That is like the most upsetting thing in the world to me.
In the ocean, I don't imagine many fish are.
In the ocean? Sorry, I just yelled that. It's like 11:30 in my apartment complex. My wife is asleep.
I think that the scary fish, the really scary fish, aren't going to be. I know enough to know that it's probably scarier than space in certain respects, right? There's the existential terror of being lost in space, right? Where you're not going to encounter anything for miles upon miles upon miles, for years upon years upon years. But in the ocean, there are things down there, and we still don't have a full grasp on what all is down there. And my philosophy is, if there's a creature that is swimming in the ocean that we've not seen before, that science has not labeled, yeah, we can call that a sea monster. There are legit sea monsters in the ocean.
I fully agree. It's called any fish in the ocean sea monster. That is my definition of the sea monster.
That's fair. That's fair. Well, if y'all haven't guessed yet, folks, we have watched Finding Nemo, the scariest movie on planet Earth, and we are going to be discussing it today. Nathaniel, when was the last time you saw this movie?
I was racking my brain. I really don't think I've watched this movie since I was the full length. Maybe I've seen clips. I would say before I was 15, maybe even like 12 or 13, and I'm 26 now. So that's half of my life ago. Cause like I knew when every scene was happening, I knew the scene, but I will say, I never quite knew what was next, and a lot of things I had in my mind that I thought happened very differently. Like I swore the sharks were with them, not the whole movie, but for a good chunk of it. They didn't show back up. Besides, like at the very, 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 very end as like a joke, like right before the credits rolled. But I really thought the sharks were kind of like an integral bit of the movie. But so it's been a long time since my child brain has since watched Finding Nemo.
I mean, I think that makes sense. That's definitely one of the more memorable scenes for me, especially as a kid. It's genuinely kind of terrifying. But, as an adult, we're focusing on, I guess, the larger picture. And so it's like when you are a kid and you're in a classroom and the room looks so big, and then you enter it as an adult and it's like, this is a small room. This is not nearly as big as I thought it was. It's because you were smaller.
No, Finding Nemo was more scary as an adult than as a kid. No, that's not true. I thought Finding Nemo was absolutely whimsical, beautiful, beautiful animation. So cute. You are correct. When Bruce goes into his feeding frenzy, actually horrifying how they animated his eyes and everything. But yeah, I wish I had a better memory as a kid with movies. There's not many movies I remember as a kid being like, this is an integral part of my childhood. Like I watched Finding Nemo. I think I liked Finding Nemo, but like I don't have any memory of having any opinions of Finding Nemo as a kid, along with most other movies. Besides The Fox and the Hound, that's a movie I want to rewatch. That one I remember as a kid really got me. But also, if you didn't watch Fox and the Hound and like cry, then like you don't have a soul, and you're probably going to hell. So I don't know how to break it to you, but go cry during that movie.
Agreed. We could maybe watch that for this next season because we are doing our season finale right now for season 4.
That's right. 4. What other things have 4 in them? I wanted to say pizza, but that's a really, really bad pizza. If you just have 4 slices.
More premium beers sometimes come in 4-packs.
Okay. If you're pretty fit, but not super, super fit, you could have a 4-pack, like of abs.
That's true.
4 eyes. Jeffrey has 2 4 eyes right now.
That's correct. I am a 4-eyed individual as of right now, and you have glasses yourself. You could be 4.
I am, but I am nearsighted, so I don't wear them during the podcast because the camera's like 2 feet from my face, so I would see worse actually. This is why you guys come to the podcast, not to hear movie reviews, but for us to think of things that have 4. If you know of things that have 4, email us at theholymonpodcast@gmail.com and let us know what has packs of 4.
Speaking of eyesight, viewing this with adult eyes, Nathaniel, how did you appreciate this movie? Was it everything it was cracked up to be? Did you appreciate things about it that you did not appreciate as a kid?
Now, I knew this question was going to be coming, so I thought long and hard about it. You know how people say, like, oh, that's not as good as it used to be. It was better in my day. They don't make it like they used to. And usually I'm like, okay, you're just like kind of old and crotchety and everything's actually okay. But I will say, they don't make it like they used to because Finding Nemo is an absolute bop. I loved it. I had a great time with it. I don't keep up with Disney or Pixar or like Western animation kids movies all that much. Like I'm not opposed to it. Like if I watch it, I'm all for it. Like I don't have an issue with it, but it's not something I sit down a ton with. So maybe it's unfair for me to try to compare it to a lot of like the 21st century Disney Pixar animation films. But I thought Finding Nemo was just a classic. It was so enjoyable. It was a great adventure movie, a great ride that I really, really enjoyed.
I think it's a movie that kids can get something out of, but also adults too, parents. In fact, I would say that this movie might be more directed at parents than at kids.
Yeah. It's fun watching these like movies that are clearly made by a person that understands kids movies are for kids and adults. Because when I was watching this as a 26-year-old, I'm like, oh my goodness, there's no way I got that joke or I got that emotional beat as a kid. Like, I'm not saying we talk down to kids. Like, I think kids can understand a lot more, like Ghibli films. I love Ghibli films because they don't talk down to their audience. I don't think we need to make like we were talking before the podcast how the new Super Mario animated movie is kind of just like dangling keys in front of a kid, or maybe the Minecraft movie. I think we can make movies that appeal to both audiences, which I think things like Finding Nemo and Monsters, Inc. achieve that, and Toy Story. Funny enough, our director, he did all 3 of those movies. I think he wrote and directed all 3 of Toy Story, Monsters, Inc., and then Finding Nemo. So I think it's finding the ability to appeal to both audiences. I kind of believe is a must when it comes to kids movies. Yeah, I don't know if it's a must, but the more we watch kids movies, I'm just like, I think it's a poor excuse if it's just for kids. You know, it doesn't mean you have to like sprinkle in hidden sex jokes or anything like that. But at the end of the day, films are stories. Period. They are stories. And I think a story can be enthralling for any audience if done properly. Now, obviously, like action horror movies don't need to appeal to kids to be good. But I do think like a kid's movie can appeal to an adult because it's a story, and a story can be appealing, you know, regardless of the ages.
Absolutely. Like when you're a kid, you see yourself in Nemo, and this story seems to be believe in yourself. You might have things that limit you in some way, such as Nemo's weak fin, but that doesn't mean that you can't try and that you can't succeed. And there's value in finding that courage in yourself. And then as an adult, you're watching Marlin, who is terrified at the prospect of losing his only son, and he could have had like hundreds, right? But due to a terrible tragedy with the barracuda, they're gone now, right? And now we have this kid who has a physical disability. Like, how do you work with that, right? And so, of course, he's overprotective, and now this fish is thrown out into the open sea, and he has to find his son. And that's compelling in a way that I couldn't have really seen as a kid. Just like the theme of I cannot hold on too tightly to this kid, or else he cannot grow and he cannot experience things. And so to be a good parent, I have to take a step back at moments.
And also what I love about that, they get the duality of like the kid's perspective and the adult's perspective. And I like the structure that the movie takes on, because the movie ultimately has this cross-cutting back and forth, because Marlin is with Dory, traveling hundreds of miles to get to Nemo in Sydney. And then Nemo is in the fish tank at the dentist's office with all of his new fish buddy friends. And I like that they separated the two. Like, they have these two distinct characters going on their own journey. One who is, I don't want to say a coward, but one who is sheltered, never seen the world, and learns what it means to be brave. And one who is anxiety and fear driven and learns what it means to let loose and also be brave. So there is, like, I would say they have different character arcs, but like learning to be brave is kind of a similar arc that they go on. But I like that the story quite literally isolates the two stories and we cut back and forth. I would say we spend probably more time screen wise with Marlin and Dory, but not like an insane amount. Like maybe 40% is with Nemo and 60% is with Marlin. And so I just thought it was, you're easier able to grasp onto their character journeys because of the structure of the movie, cross-cutting back and forth between these two locations and kind of watching simultaneously Marlin get over his like letting go and being willing to be like Dory, just go with the flow, and for Nemo to let go of his like his crippled fin and to be brave. And so I thought that drove home the two character stories even more than as if they were like side by side experiencing at the same time.
Yeah, it didn't feel like an A plot and a B plot. It felt like two A plots. Marlin is the main character. Nemo is the main character. Speaking of characters, I love how Marlin is characterized in this movie. He feels very real, very fleshed out, the kind of person you'd see on the street, someone you might know, right? Who is totally overcome with anxiety and fear, and it comes from a very real place, a very traumatic event. And seeing how this inhibits him and also impacts his kid, right? Constantly telling Nemo, hey, you can't do this, right? You have certain disabilities, you have certain things holding you back, and you cannot overcome them, and so I must protect you. And he might be trying to project authority and concern, right, for Nemo's well-being, but what does that communicate to Nemo? One, that communicates that I can't do anything, and two, that communicates that my dad is a coward. Even when Nemo is told, hey, your father has been traversing the seven seas after he's fought sharks, he's fought jellyfish, he's traveled the Eastern Current, or whatever you call it. Nemo doesn't believe him at first. It's like, my dad couldn't do that. He's terrified of the ocean. What we intend versus what we actually give out can be two very different things, and I love how we see that in their dynamic.
I love the character of Marlin. I love the cowardly approach. I just feel like if an adult is a coward in a kid's movie, usually they don't get a character arc. Usually they are just the archetype of coward, and it's usually played for humor or as a plot point. But I don't feel like often you get your character arc being going from coward to bravery as an adult in a kid's movie. I feel like that's pretty unique. And so I loved that it was struggling with cowardliness, especially like you're right. Nemo multiple times throughout the movie says his father's a coward. That I don't remember. Like I don't have that memory as a kid. Like that plot point didn't register as a kid to me. But as an adult, now granted I don't have kids yet, but when Nemo said that, it was a lot more painful. Like I can imagine being an adult and thinking you have it all together, but you don't. Like you don't have life altogether, and you do struggle with fear, anxiety, cowardness, self doubt, and you struggle with all these things, and your kids see it. And so, how soul crushing is it for your kid to view you that way? And also, this movie is relatable even if you're not a coward. I would hope so. I just like I cannot imagine being a parent and feeling like a coward. It has to be one of the worst feelings ever. Like, I'm sure at every point in some person's life, you feel like a failure. But I just imagine being a parent and feeling like I'm a coward and my child is standing up in a way that I can't. So just for anyone that resonated with Marlon's character, my heart goes out for you because that it just would be really hard. And so just the coward perspective was a very unique lens for our main father character to go through, and how, because usually it's the opposite. Usually it's the little kid who has the broken fin and he's a coward and he has to learn to overcome. But Nemo wasn't overcoming cowardliness. Nemo was more of a coming of age story. He was more sheltered and he had to learn independence on his own because ultimately his dad was a helicopter parent. And so it was only after taking Nemo away from Marlin that Marlin was able to grow, especially after finding Dory. But I just love the lens of coward. Not something done a lot in film.
Yeah, and Marlin didn't view himself as a coward at the beginning. He viewed himself as a protector. And that's understandable given what happened at the very beginning of the film, where his mate, Coral, is killed by the barracuda, and the barracuda eats all of his children, and now there's only Nemo left. And he has to make sure that nothing ever happens to Nemo, which becomes a very important plot point later on. And that's his sole driving focus is, I love this child. Nothing can ever happen to this child. Everything has happened before, and everything was awful. And so I've got to keep him from the boat. I have to keep him from school. I have to keep him from this, from that. And I love that he's a coward, even if he doesn't recognize it, because it's through his cowardice that his bravery shines, right? You cannot be brave without fear. Right? Bravery is the overcoming of fear. And so we see these obstacles thrown Marlin's way, and of course he's terrified. He's never faced anything like it. He's sheltered himself, and he's pushing through anyway. Why? Because he loves his son, and he wants his son to be okay. And then after bulldozing, not quite bulldozing, just escaping narrowly all of these obstacles within an inch of his life, as soon as he finds Nemo, he has to let him go a little. And I find that incredibly compelling.
It's the climax of the movie, not just because it's the most suspenseful thing. Oh, these fish are going to be, fished up to put in Jeffrey's 40 cans of tuna. It's not that. I guess I will say Dory is at danger, but Marlin's not in the net. Nemo can get out of the net. Ultimately, our two main characters will survive. So I like that it's not just a climax of perils. Oh no, is the bad guy going to kill the good guy? It is more a climax of the character arcs. Will Nemo be brave? Will Marlin let go? Because I think even more than Marlin learning to be not a coward and brave, he has to learn how to let go. That's like Dory's whole thing. Dory is a glass half full, optimistic, goes with the flow. She lets things roll off her fins, to say. And Marlin, out of fear, out of cowardness, holds on to everything. And so this climax isn't an action climax. It's not a life-threatening climax. It is a climax of the character's journey and their arcs. And I think that's really, really smart writing to have that, especially like in a kids movie, to have it be it. And again, this is where it relates back to like where I feel like adults can enjoy this movie. It wasn't some goofy fun climax of, oh no, the gumdrop mountain exploded and the kids had to get out. It was a climax of, can I be brave and can I let go? Two things that every single human and every single kid at some point has to learn those lessons.
Yeah, for sure. I was reading an article, really it was a transcript for an episode of the podcast, Script Notes. I think it was Craig Mason who was hosting this particular episode, and he uses Nemo as an example of how to write a script. And what he says is, at the center of each traditionally structured story is an argument, right? And the argument is embodied in the conflict of the characters, and particularly the main character. So in the case of this movie, the argument could be, if you love something, you have to be willing to let it go. You can't hold on too tightly. At the beginning of the movie, we have a character who embodies the exact opposite of that. And the story is getting him to a point where he sees the validity of that particular argument. It's going from a place of stasis to a place of action. And how does he do this? Right? Well, he's at home, right? He's comfortable. He has a lot of insecurities, but if we didn't have that inciting incident, we get the sense that he could live his entire life that way, and there wouldn't really be a problem. He wouldn't be as happy as he potentially could be, but it's livable. But then the writer of the story puts an obstacle in his way, an inciting incident that forces him out of that comfort zone. And throughout the movie, you're tasked with giving him glimmers of hope, pushing him in the right direction, and then you also have to push back against that as well. It's a push and pull all the way through. And ultimately, he gets pulled in one direction over the other. But there's that tugging that is happening, that has to happen in order for the story to take place.
It goes back to day one when we went to film school. That idea of obstacle, of inciting incident. Your character has to go on a journey. And this movie really reminded me of Tangled in a lot of ways. It's pretty simple. Our characters have a goal, and that goal is a distance away, and they quite literally just go on a journey, which could arguably be a billion movies. That's all Lord of the Rings is. Get the ring from the Shire to Mount Doom. But just something about it really struck a chord with Tangled, another one of my all-time favorite Disney movies, of just this simple inciting incident, this simple goal, but done with such care and attention to character development. Was this a beautiful animated movie that I really enjoyed watching? Absolutely. That helped a lot. But arguably, it's very straightforward. Son wants his kid back. For all intents and purposes, this is taken. This is taken in the ocean with a lot less death and prostitution. But it's them focusing on the obstacles. There's physical obstacles, right? You got the jellyfish, you got the sharks, you got the whale. There's a lot of physical obstacles. But again, if they don't have the character, the emotional obstacles of Marlin always being confronted with his own cowardness, the movie would have been a lot more bland. And I think that's an issue with modern day kids movies in Western sphere, but also I think just movies in general. You start to only put physical obstacles in the way. Now, granted, there are some movies that's fine. We recently watched The Raid, amazing action movie. There's not a lot of depth to it. You don't need a lot of depth to it. The guy's on level 1. He needs to get to the top of the building to beat the crap out of the bad guy. That's all you need. But I do think most movies need an emotional core because that emotional core is the story. The story isn't Frodo getting the ring from the Shire to Mount Doom. The story is what happens to Frodo in the in-between. And not the physicality. That's a big part of it. But the emotional. How does the ring change Frodo? How do his friends around him change him? That's the things that strikes chords with humans. And so I think really, really smart writing by giving it a very clear, simple, easy story, point A to point B. There'll be obstacles along the way. But to not forget to have the emotional beats of character development along that journey. Really well done.
Character is story. That's something that Robert McKee says. A lot of people are trying to figure out, okay, well, how do I make compelling characters that suit the story's needs? No, you start with the character. You start with what are their problems? What's the driving force behind their actions? What are their aims? And what ought they to aim for? And you write around that because ultimately characters drive story. And so if your movie doesn't have an emotional core, if it doesn't have a human element, an element of striving, then it's not a story at all. It's just a bunch of flashing lights and moving objects. It's dangling the keys in front of the kids.
And it is fun watching more indie movies or a lot of foreign films that really press back on the 3-act structure, emotional storytelling, and do a lot of weird wonky things. And I think that has its place in cinema for sure. And I do enjoy it. But there's something so great returning to some of the golden age of Disney, where the 3-act structure, where these very emotionally driven, interesting characters go on character arcs. It makes me think of any Tom Hanks movie. I love Tom Hanks. I feel like his characters are always going on these journeys. And not, again, maybe physical, but more emotional. And there's just something about it that's so endearing. And because I think it speaks to a big part of what it means to be human.
Yeah, and I've also read, Craig Mazin says that story structure, the 3-act structure, isn't so much a structure to pigeonhole your story into, so much as a natural consequence of effective storytelling, if the story you're telling is a more traditional story. And so once you identify what your character wants and what your character needs and what their insecurities are, the points of conflict, that's really all you need for a nice classic story.
Let me ask you this. Did you have a moment with either Nemo or Marlin's story that, I don't know about really resonated with you, but you really liked? Just like a brief moment of him going from coward to brave, or Nemo kind of coming into his own of adolescence. Was there a moment that really spoke to you?
Well, they're trapped in the whale's mouth, not quite stomach, because the whale's just holding them there. And this seems to be a darkest hour, not the darkest hour, but a very dark moment for Marlin. He believes that all is lost. And he's bemoaning the fact that he promised Nemo he wouldn't let anything ever happen to him. And Dory, she hears that sentiment and she's understandably kind of bewildered. It's like, you promised nothing would ever happen to him? Well, if nothing ever happens to him, then nothing would ever happen to him. And that's also kind of a sad existence, isn't it? And I think him hearing Dory say that lights a spark in his brain. It's like, oh yeah, well, I guess you're right. And he's traveled so far at this point. I mean, he's proven to himself that he can do a lot more than he envisioned. And the moment that you described earlier too, where Nemo, he hears about all the exploits that his father's been involved with, and he's like, that can't be my father. I know him. He's a coward. He's afraid of the ocean. That hit in a very deep way for me as well. It's like, wow. Again, his father's trying to project one thing, and the kid gets something completely different. And the kid's insight is honestly a little sharper than the adults, because kids are smart. Kids notice things. They notice things that you wouldn't even notice, or they notice the things that you're trying to hide explicitly from them. And I know this from like working with kids for a bit, just how smart that they can be. And if you're trying to bullshit them, they'll see right through it and they won't respect that.
They'll smell it.
It's like Bruce smelling Dory's blood, which like there's actual blood in this movie.
Yeah.
Red blood.
I remember that I genuinely watched the animation so closely and so intently when that blood came out, because it's like, wow, that's a good amount of blood. They're not hiding it. It's full on. But Jeffrey, it's because it's fish blood. And fish aren't people. They can be killed. They can be slaughtered. It's no big deal.
I don't know if you thought this, but I thought this when Bruce takes that big old huff of Dory's blood. I had this thought. It's like, that must have smelled so good. That looks like it smelled very good.
Yeah, I feel like that would be me if I ever smelled anything ever. Because, fun fact, people listening to this podcast, I don't have a sense of smell. So,
yeah,
I'm sure I'd love to be able to smell some fish blood. I don't think I would. Does fish have blood? I don't know. Do demons have blood? I don't think so.
Yeah, no. I think fish have blood. Like when you gut a fish, there's some red that comes out. I don't think it's like our blood though.
I think they're full of hate, piss, and vinegar.
I think that's fair.
Not these fish. I will say these fish. I like these fish.
What are they filled of?
Well, Dory's filled with blood, so I guess blood.
Apparently, just pure blood.
Just pure.
Nothing
blood.
else. Like a sack of blood.
If
No
you
organs, no flesh.
If you squeeze Nemo, he just like pop. Like it's like a water balloon filled with blood.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think for me, a moment that I really liked, it was small, but so after, we have our inciting incident, Nemo gets kidnapped. He gets taken. I think it's funny now I realize this movie's just taken. It would be funny to re-edit a trailer and make it a horror Taken-esque kind of feel to it. But I digress. So Dory and Marlin are looking for Nemo. Their first obstacle they run into is the sharks. But the second obstacle is the mask that has the address for where Nemo is falls into a dark, dark pit. And at this point, we have seen Marlin do nothing but be afraid and a coward. I don't think he's done one brave thing at all so far. And they have to go down there. And it's Dory that says, just keep swimming, just keep swimming. And they get down there and they're faced off with, I think it's called an anglerfish. That fish that has like a little glowing bulb in front of it that uses it to attract its prey and eats them. Because fish are demons, but I digress. But when they defeat the anglerfish, Marlin has his first moment of, I would say, almost like pride and excitement. Marlin is kind of a sassy little guy when he's not a coward. Like, remember at the very, very beginning of the movie before he has any of his trauma? And the wife is like, what are we going to name them? It's like, well, this half is Marlon Jr., and this half is Carl Jr. Good enough. Like, he's just funny and has a bit of, like, I wouldn't say pride, but sass to him. And I feel like that sass he still has after the traumatic incidents, but it's like cowardly sass. But in
It's
the
more
moment,
sarcastic. It's more bitter.
yeah, and it's almost like self-degrading. I wouldn't say it's quite self-degrading, but I feel like that's almost what Marlon's character has become. And so that moment that they capture the anglerfish, they defeat him. He's like, "Yeah, we did it. In your face, go me." He's like very boastful about it. And I thought that was just a really nice moment to return to what Marlon was at the beginning of this movie. Not a perfect character, but a character with emotion, heart, and feelings that he has like pushed down and covered with fear and anxiety. And so that moment where it first comes through, and we're not shown that he's like this perfect knight or gentleman, but he's like a boastful, proud, excited, kind of just go lucky dude. And so I really liked when we saw that bit of him break through.
Yeah, I mean, he's a coward with a bite, right? I think he kept the sass, he kept the sarcasm, but it's more targeted. It's more like outwardly focused in a way. I mean, it is self-deprecating in a sense, but also he can just kind of be an asshole, right? He's an asshole to the silverfish. He's an asshole to his neighbors. He's kind of disrespectful to the manta ray as well, just not really trusting him to do his job. You get the sense that he's kind of a Karen because he's a helicopter parent. Like, he fits all of the archetypes. He's kind of not a fun guy to be around, but he's a very fun guy to watch because he's real.
Yeah, I like to think that Dory helped him over his trauma, and now he's just a charismatic asshole. He's like, "Oh, I'm not a coward anymore. You know what I am? A dick." No, I don't think that's the case.
I haven't seen Finding Dory, but I'd be interested to see how he is in that movie.
I have not. But speaking of, we have not talked nearly enough about Dory, considering she's my favorite character to watch in the movie. I don't know about you, but I find her so endearing. I think it's a fine line to walk with a character like Dory because you can get old fast. The whole amnesia, she's forgetting what's going on, the go lucky, everything's going to work out. I feel like that type of, like the Mary Sue type of character can just become old. But it wasn't. It was innocence at its finest. It was confidence and innocence and playfulness and everything Marlon wasn't. She wasn't ashamed of who she was. Obviously to an extreme point where there are sharks and she's like, "Yeah, sharks are friends. Oh, we've been swallowed by a whale? It's okay." But I just found myself having a lot of fun with her. And also not to jab at Nemo or Marlon's voice actors, because they had very specific characters that were a little more tampered down. But Dory, Ellen DeGeneres' voice acting in this, 10 out of 10. And the animation of Dory's face as a fish, it's the only redeeming quality of a fish I've ever seen, and this is a fake fish.
No, for sure. I love their dynamic together. I love how that tells a story and how that characterizes them both, because Marlon's a jerk to her oftentimes. He talks down to her. He doesn't really believe her to be all that capable. And we see that is a pattern of behavior that he's not only projecting onto Nemo, but he's projecting this onto Dory as well, right? Where Nemo has a physical disability. She has more of a mental one where she can't really recall things beyond a certain point. And so even when she says, "Hey, like we should swim through this canyon here, not over it," he just doesn't trust that, right? And he uses subterfuge. He's like, "Oh, look at that, something shiny above the cavern," in order to get his way. He just doesn't trust her. And that ends up getting them into some trouble with the jellyfish.
You get the feeling that Marlon would be a gaslighter.
He's very stuck in his ways, and he will do a lot to get his way. Maybe his heart is ultimately in the right place, but he likes doing things himself. And he just gets the sense that other people will fuck it up, or other people will mess it up.
Can't cuss. This is a PG. No, it's a G. This is a G episode.
And then, like Dory, yes, she has the short-term memory lost, but she is very capable in ways that Marlon doesn't see at first, and then begrudgingly accepts, and then it becomes truly appreciative for. It's like she can read, she can speak whale somehow. And so she's not merely a Mary Sue in the sense of she's not perfect in every respect, but her character justifies itself and is believable.
I also love their dynamic. I love that they're not romantically interested. it seems simple, but this movie easily could have gone that direction. But they do a good job of setting up that I feel like, he had a wife. And okay. Is this racist? Is this fish racist? I feel like a clownfish can only marry a clownfish. I don't know. Maybe that's just me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not attracted to dogs. And even if that dog were intelligent, were sentient on a human level, I still wouldn't be attracted to dogs because I'm not a dog. And so I have to imagine that Marlin and Dory are similar. It's like, oh yeah, she's my buddy. She's intelligent, but she's a
my
different
dog.
species.
Yeah, my dog's real smart. Good job, Dory.
It's like the show Invincible, which I haven't seen, but
oh yeah,
you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Because the dad is like, Mark, she's like a pet, Of course,
yeah,
I like her.
I do love her.
Yeah,
like a pet. Yeah.
I'm really excited. I'm waiting for all the episodes to come out for the 4th season. Then I'm gonna binge it. I like the show a lot. But yeah, I just like that they didn't have any romantic interest, which made their relationship even more interesting. Because it's like, okay, they're not wanting to be around each other because they love each other, but these both feel like very adult. Again, it's personification. Marlin is a 40-year-old balding dude with a gut who wears sandals and cargo pants, and Dory is a tall, thinner lady with her hair going gray who wears like crystals around her neck that is fun and runs around. Like, these are real people in my mind, and just like imagine those two paired up in the world, you would assume there would be some romantic interest in any other movie. But the fact that they're not makes it a friendship. And you don't see adult friendships all that often that aren't sexualized in movies. And so it was fresh. When Marlin started to take care of her, when they made it through the jellyfish, but she got attacked and got like sliced and scarred. And in any other moment, that would have been a romantic moment of like, oh, I must take care of her. But it was just a friendship. It was sincere. It was heartwarming. And I just like that.
Yeah, and I love your descriptions of their human selves because it's exactly what I pictured. And that is a testament to the writers and the animators that we know exactly what they would look like as humans if they were humans. Like, you describing him as balding with a gut. Yes, he is so balding, right? If he's has the hair and maybe he's trying for a comb over, but it's just not working. It's just not working.
I don't know. It's not the character's disposition. It's the character's character design. I don't watch King of the Hill, but there's one of the rednecks is shorter and fatter and always wears like a wife beater. It's kind of bald. To our audience, whoever, if you know who he is, you know who he is. That's who I kind of view Marlin, but with Marlin's personality in that body.
I see that body maybe with a button-up shirt, not particularly well dressed, but like he's well dressed for the office.
Yeah, less redneck. Yeah, I would agree. And then for Dory, I just imagine the mom of Jess from New Girl, who's she's famous. Jamie Lee Curtis. I think it's Jamie Lee Curtis. Strike me with the stone if I'm wrong. But yeah, I think Jamie Lee Curtis's character in New Girl, who plays the titular main character, Jess's mother. That's who I imagine Dory being.
I could see that. But yeah, like male-female friendships that don't go in a romantic direction. What are other movies that have that?
When Harry Met Sally, until they do go in that direction.
Until they do go in that direction.
The first 90% of the movie. But for other movies that, I don't know. I'm trying to, especially like kids movies. Again, I'm not that well versed.
Luke and Leia.
Well, that's the opposite of When Harry Met Sally. The first 10% is sex, and then the last 90% is not sex.
Yeah, the last 90% is like sibling.
That awkward moment you realize the person you kissed is your sister. Oh, but again, it's usually done. I feel like there's almost usually always a romantic interest, especially in kids movies. I guess Inside Out didn't have any really, like, I know she's like, maybe she likes boys and that's part of the memory, but like, I don't think any of the main characters in Inside Out have romantic interests.
Yeah, it's not like joy and anger or making eyes at each other.
Yeah, it's been a minute. But yeah, okay, it's usually like Frozen, like someone, like Disney princess movies, gotta fall in love with someone. Not Elsa, though, because she's a secret lesbian.
I don't know if you noticed this at all. I love the score of this movie, the music.
I'm happy you brought it up. It's one of the few things I wrote in my notes.
I could just listen to this score on repeat. It's so soothing. and emotional. And it was not Randy Newman.
It was his cousin.
It was his cousin who wrote this music. And he's, I believe, composed other things for Disney before, but
I think he's done a lot. At least since then. I don't know. That might have been one of his first, but since then he's done a lot.
Easily one of my favorite Disney scores.
It was nominated for an Oscar for its music, and it lost to Lord of the Rings.
Which, understandable.
I was saying, if you're gonna lose to something, which also, hey, ties back in my my metaphor, my connection to Lord of the Rings earlier in the podcast, all goes back.
It's all planned, guys. Believe it or
Yeah.
not, this is 100% scripted.
That would be so sad if it was. We'd be doing a bad job if this was a scripted podcast.
No, I mean, I think we'd be doing a good job of convincing people that it's
That is
more or
true.
less improvised. So that would be impressive script wise.
I remember before, like, kind of when I was first getting into podcasts, like early college days. Before college was just YouTube, but when I got into college, I listened to a lot more podcasts. When I found out improv podcast shows were a thing, it blew me away. Because I was maybe like 12 episodes into a podcast called Hello from the Magic Tavern, and I was like, man, to like have this all pre-scripted would be so hard. I did not know people had the ability to just like it's one thing to have a conversation, but to have like a story-driven character thing that you do on the spot blew me away. That is not what we do. But I digress. The score. Really, really love the score for one main reason. Music and Disney. They go together like, Jeffrey, what do they go together like?
Music and Disney go together like ice cream and brownies.
I was thinking Luke and Leia, but to each their own. No, but the point is, Disney. We love Disney for its soundtracks. We love listening to the music, to the songs, falling in love with them. It's part of the core, like, golden age of Disney animated, like Disney Princess and movies. But it does lean to a more childish type of movie. Not saying bad, but childish. Finding Nemo is cinematic. Its score has depth to it. It integrates its score with the sound design. Sure, there are motifs, but they're not breaking out into song. And it's not like one kind of redone motif over and over again. It is a well, diverse cinematic score that makes the movie more believable, more livable, makes the characters more dynamic, and makes the overall film feel more like an adult movie. And that's why I loved it. Yeah, like the music was good, but I love the direction to decide, hey, let's not go and have Nemo break out into song and dance or have these like one note songs repeat and repeat. It is like a full on cinematic suite of a score. And I loved it for that.
And it was very environmental. Like,
yes. Yeah.
Conveyed a sense of depth that was evocative of the ocean. Whereas you watch The Little Mermaid and you get to the musical number, Under the Sea, beautiful song, right? I love it. It's so fun. I didn't really feel like I was in the ocean.
What? Jeffrey, he was telling you, you're under the sea. How could you not know where you are? How could you not know?
I don't really have that media literacy. I was like, oh, are we in a desert or something?
This is the moon, right?
No, he's being ironic, right? When he says we're under the sea. We can't actually be under the sea. Like, we can't breathe underwater. And those ladies, they don't have gills. Point to the gills.
They're underneath the shells.
Well, then they're just smothering themselves, aren't they? That must be very uncomfortable.
They're modest, Jeffrey. My goodness. Clothe yourself. Don't be a slut.
I'll try not to, Nathaniel. I'll try not to. The score in this movie, though, no, it felt like I was in the ocean. It gave me a sense of the vastness of it. And also, it gave me a sense of wonder. There's a lot to be explored. There's a lot out there that I don't know. And if I but step outside of myself, I can experience it. And that's what this movie's about.
Whenever I write my notes for the episode, I try to listen to the score just to get my mind space in the right place. And I like the score in the movie, but on a re-listen to, I was so impressed by the variety. Like, again, you want to have cohesiveness with your scores. You know, you want to have motifs, but every scene felt different. And it was the atmosphere. It was the environment of the different locations. I think it was during either the whale, but I think it was probably during the shark. There was a bit of score that reminded me so much of Logan's score, the rated R X-Men movie. which I know very well because I took inspiration from that score for one of my short films, Jaeger. And when it came on, I was like, whoa, this sounds like that horror adult, like horror action movie. And this is a Finding Nemo. So I thought that was so cool when that moment happened. And that's the moment I was like, this score is cool. This is not gimmicky. This is unique.
Super happy that we brought this up because I could go on about the score all day. But to move on to a different subject, let's talk about the human characters. There's very few. There's Darla. There's the dentist. I think, the dentist, he seems obnoxious, but I think he'd be a fun hang.
I think the dentist might be the most realistic portrayal of a human I've ever seen. I know that person. I know that dentist. And he doesn't live in Sydney, Australia. I feel like, where do you think from the United States he's from?
Weirdly enough, I could see him living on a lake more so than by like the ocean.
Really? I'm thinking Jersey.
Like he has a nice lake house, Jersey.
Yeah, I'm thinking he's kind of
Explain your reasoning.
Well, I think he kind of has like New York F off vibes, but also very confident. But then Jersey feels like that, but with less suave. They're kind of more rough around the edges. And it's by the water. I think New Jersey's by the water. Yeah, I'm bad at geography, but I'm 90% sure it is. I just imagine him like as a kind of a Brooklyn guy, like, hey, I'm kind of dumb. I'm kind of bullheaded. I want it my way, but I have a good heart.
Good heart. I think that's true. I think he seems like a nice guy, right? He's trying to make his customers feel at home in his dentist's office, and maybe he's not the best at it because his customers are in pain a lot.
Yeah.
Supposedly that guy took Novocaine, but I don't know if that got through.
What nightmare fuel for a kid. Imagine watching this. It came out in 2003. I would have been like 4 or 5 watching this. And then, what kid likes the dentist to begin with? And you see this and then you're like, oh, I'm never going back to the dentist ever.
I love how invested the fish are in what's happening on the dentist seat, right? And they know all the tools and they're arguing over them. It's like, oh, they're doing another extraction today.
Yeah, which again, it's little things like that. Yes, you could have deep character moments, like going all the way back when Jeff was talking about Dory and Marlin inside the whale. And he says the line of like, I just want to protect him from everything or whatever it was. And Dory's like, why would you want to do that? I think you can get the very, very like general vibe of it as a kid. Oh, this is impactful. This is emotional. But I feel like that line doesn't hit near as much until you're an adult. And that makes for a good adult movie. But also moments like this, you're like I guess you kind of get like, they said some big words maybe about dentistry, but you don't fully grasp the humor of the scene until you're watching it as an adult with like more comprehension. And so I love that they're sewn in both. They're sewn in the humor and then they're sewn in the like emotional beats that like, again, not that kids don't pick up. I think a kid will pick up, this is serious, this is funny, but you're not going to pick up all of it, which makes it even better for rewatches.
Oh, for sure. But they do a great job also of making the human characters feel intimidating. When we zoom back, yeah, he's probably a nice guy, right? But when you're put into the headspace of a fish, right? Particularly at the beginning when he is outside of his boat, he is a scuba diver. It's freakish, right? We have this massive creature that's scooping you out of your home and taking you who knows where. It's a literal alien abduction.
It's taken. It's taken. He's going to go put him in another fish tank with a bunch of other fish that he stole. Little creepo dude. It also helps that animated beautifully. It's still ever so slightly in the, like, you ever get the Uncanny Valley vibe from like the adults? Like just like the smidgest a bit about from them?
Yeah.
And so I feel like that leads to their intimidation. That like, especially, there's just this one shot where the pelican comes into the dentist near the end of the movie. And there's all hell breaks loose. And there's a little kid watching in. And he can't see what's happening. So he just sees like someone screaming in pain in the dentist's office where he's about to go in. And they do almost like a dolly zoom in on the kid's face. It wasn't a dolly zoom, it's just kind of a push in. And that kid looks upsetting. That kid looks like he's on meth. He reminded me of the same kid from The Incredibles, which there was a lot of incredible, like there was a lot of like other, there was a nod to The Incredibles, there was a nod to Toy Story. So there's different like little Easter eggs. But the boy that Violet likes, have you seen pictures of that boy recently? Because when we think in our head, like, oh yeah, like Incredibles, amazing. If you pull him up, he looks horrible. He looks so thin and pale and like you could blow him away with a breeze. insanity.
I feel like that's the kind of archetype that a lot of teenage girls are into. Like think Edward and Twilight.
They're just into anemic boys. Shucks, that's a shame. I have so much blood to give. It's like a superpower of mine. Anytime the blood mobile would come to like high school for donating blood, all the teenage girls would go in and some would faint and throw up and have to go home, and I would give blood, and I was like, brother, I feel better. Like there's too much blood in me. Get it out of me. I'm like Dory.
I tried to sell my plasma for my senior project to raise money, and I was able to sell it, I guess, 3 times. But then they noticed this bump on my arm. It's like a benign tumor, but it looks really grody. And like it's fine. I don't have cancer or anything, but it's been there for a few years, and until I get that officially checked out, I can't donate any more plasma.
Yeah, that's crazy. I've known Jeffrey for 6-ish years, and I didn't find this out until this previous October at a friend's wedding. So like 6 months ago, he's like, "Oh yeah, look at this like maybe like benign tumor." And I was like, "Oh, you've had it checked out?" He's like, "No." I was like, "Then it's not benign. You don't know if it's benign, Jeffrey. Go to the hospital." My goodness.
I mean, it hasn't done anything to me this far, so
It just explodes.
I will say it's more pronounced after I pumped some iron, because like the skin around it gets tight, and it's just like a big bump, and it looks like an extra muscle. That's what I thought it was for the longest time. It's like, oh, it's just like what arms look like. And then one day I looked at my right arm and I said, whoa, it's not there.
Oh, you're like Nemo. You're crippled.
That's right.
I got a broken arm. A little ball sack on your arm, Jeffrey.
That's why I resonate so much with this movie.
And I resonate with Dory because I have a lot of blood in me. Look at this. This movie really does span all ages, sex, and genders. Why do you think there were like the mines underneath the ocean?
Oh, those are leftovers from World War II.
Is that what it's insinuating?
Probably. World War I or World War II.
I don't know if the fish like had a great war one day and they made mines.
That would have been cooler. But unfortunately, there's this guy called Hitler, and he decided to do some really bad stuff.
But hear me out. Hitler's just a fish, like 16 fish on each other's shoulders in a trench coat. And no one noticed.
Yeah. I mean, hey, that sounds like a theory that you'd make. And I
Thanks.
Well, I guess we'll never know unless we like exhume him from his grave. Does he have a grave? Is Hitler buried anywhere, or did we just get rid of his body?
That's an interesting question. I feel like he's not cremated, taxidermied in some secret Hitler base somewhere in the world.
Secret Hitler base? Like Hydra?
Known as Jeffrey's basement.
My basement. Yeah, I have Hitler in my basement, taxidermied. I like to go down there sometimes, just stare at him. I like stroking his little pencil mustache.
And you're like, one day it will be me. Well, I don't know how this relates to Finding Nemo at all, even though I'm the one that detoured us.
Anyhow, folks, let's talk about Crush for a bit. What a cool turtle.
I thought you meant like, let's talk about our movie crushes in Finding Nemo. And I went, no, thank you.
Some people really thirst after Gil. Some people online, like the fish in the tank with the scar.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's fair. That's
Willem Dafoe.
Yeah, yep. As soon as you started talking, I was like, yeah, that's a sexy voice.
That is one sexy fish.
All right, Jeffrey. Well, we'll talk about Crush in a minute, but now we have to talk about who are you thirsting after in this movie?
Ah, man. I guess I called this upon myself. Listen.
No,
I know this might come as a surprise to some people. I'm not all that attracted to fish. So like I look at Dory, nothing. I feel nothing. Can you believe it?
It's like a pet to me. That's fair. I guess there's you see this receptionist in the dentist office. She's a woman. And I think you see the mom of one of the child patients at the dentist office. I think those might be the only 2 females we see. So have your pick.
I'm calling the mom.
Oh, of course you would.
No. She has her head in the newspaper.
She has her head. That's Jeffrey's bar. They got to have a head.
Well, true. I think I'd be very disturbed if my partner did not have a head. I think that's a fair thing to ask for, wouldn't you say?
I guess that's fair. I tried to bully you and it backfired. Okay, fair enough. Sorry. I keep derailing you. Crush the turtle. Yeah, he was great. He He was a little high surfer dude. Well, you know what I want to know about that scene? I almost Googled it, but I was too lazy because it was like midnight when I was watching this movie. Do currents move like that in the ocean? Are they like circular tubes? Is that a thing?
I don't know. The thing is, research was done for this movie. And so you get them dropping fun little fish facts here and there. Like one of the fish in the tank are talking about, oh, like that's a good 48,000 or 4,800 teeth when they're talking about the 3 sharks, which I'm sure that's true. I didn't look it up, but
that's what I want the people to take away from this podcast. To just believe what I say, and what I say is Jeffrey has Hitler in the basement. But anyways, what I like the krill, the shrimp when he cleaned Nemo. Is that a thing that krill / shrimp do? They clean things.
Yeah, they eat that stuff. They eat the scum. You know how some fish in fish tanks stick themselves to the walls and they clean it off, all the residue. You know the ones I'm talking about.
Yeah, the face sucker ones.
So shrimp are kind of like that, and they're not sucking on the glass per se, but they eat just the
little perverts. Imagine if someone came up to you and was like, "Can I clean you?" and then they proceed to lick you.
Oh, this is a fun little adult joke near the end when the tank is filled with scum, right? And I think some of the fish, it might even be the shrimp, it's like eating the stuff out of the water, and the purple fish is like, don't y'all understand that we're living in our own and then the dentist intervenes with like a different.
It's even better than that because they don't cut on him saying shh. He says, "Don't you know we're all living in our own?" And then it cuts to the starfish who says shh because he's like hushing him, and so that little play makes it even funnier. I feel. I like that little. I guess his character. I loved. That's another thing. Kind of vaguely a big-ish cast. You know, you got your 3 main. You got Marlin, you got Nemo, you got Dory. But then Marlin and Dory meet so many fish along the way, and sea turtles. And sharks? Are sharks fish? No, sharks are mammals, right?
Sharks are fish.
Ugh.
Yeah, they have gills.
Gross. Okay, moving on. And then you have all the fish in the fish tank. And they weren't the most important characters, but they each had their own little quirk, and I really, really enjoyed all of them. I did not catch this at all as a kid, but I liked how Gil, the hot fish, I guess if you want to say Willem Dafoe's fish, they like insinuated that, fish aren't meant to keep in fish tanks. It does crazy things to a fish brain. Pans to the yellow sunfish, Bubbles, who's like crazy for bubbles. So at first you think it's just like a fun character moment, but then you realize, oh, he's gone insane. He should be in the loony bin. He's a crazy man.
No, they're very well characterized. I get the sense that they're all, I've been saying this a lot, they feel real. They feel real. Maybe a little exaggerated, but they didn't feel useless either. Again, they didn't do a lot for the story, but I'm glad that they were there. They felt necessary because, if for nothing else, the entertainment value I got from them. And that's the thing to understand about characters in a story. So even if they don't do much, if you can find a way to make them entertaining, they justify themselves.
And I think real is a great word because at the end of the day, what makes Finding Nemo work is personification. It's amazing that the human brain and its wrinkly wisdom is able to look at these 3D animated fake fish that don't exist and go, oh, I know what it's like to be a parent and feel fear and anxiety. Oh, I know what it's like to be a kid and to not know what's out in the big, big blue world and be scared. Like, we're able to so easily attach stories and emotions to anything. There's a movie out there about a pet rock, and we're able to attach, like Project Hail Mary. I guess spoilers for those who haven't seen it or read the book, but like that whole movie's about a dude talking to a rock, and we as the humans are able to connect emotions to that. And I think it's an amazing thing. And so I think it is a cool feat that we can make fake fish feel real, and real in the sense of not the animation quality or the CGI, but real in the sense of human emotion.
I haven't seen the movie Castaway, but don't they do something similar with the volleyball?
Yeah. Yep. Wilson, you have not seen Castaway?
I haven't seen it, but I get the sense that over the course of the movie, of course, Tom Hanks forms a bond with this ball, and then the audience also kind of forms a bond with this ball, such that when the ball floats away, there is a real sense of loss, not only on Tom Hanks' part, but on our part as an audience member.
Very tragic. I will say, fun fact, I love Tom Hanks. Might be my least favorite Tom Hanks movie. I will say it deserves a rewatch, and I didn't dislike it, but it wasn't my favorite. And I need to rewatch. It's been a while since I've seen it, so I need to confirm if it is my least favorite Tom Hanks movie.
Yeah. Oh, maybe it can be an episode for the next season of the podcast, since I haven't seen it too.
There we go. And we'll do this until the sun blows up. So many movies to be reviewed yet.
Just a brief comment on Crush. I liked how he was a good foil to Marlon, where Marlon is a helicopter parent, and then Crush is more of a laissez-faire, hands-off approach to parenting that Marlon learns from. His kid escapes the current for a moment. Marlon is terrified for him, but Crush holds him back. He's like, "Listen, man, I'll let him do his thing. Let's see how he handles this wave." And sure enough, he handles the wave just fine. He comes back in, and he's all the stronger for it. And Crush is very supportive, very affirmative of his child. It's like, yes, you did this. You can do this. You are powerful. And Marlon just tucks that moment away for himself so that later he can apply that lesson to his own son. Right? Each moment moves Marlon in a direction.
And something also, just a small thing about that scene that makes it kind of fun is, if I'm not mistaken, I don't think we know that Squirt is Crush's kid. It's a reveal. Like, we see Squirt fly out of the stream, and Marlon's like, "Oh my gosh, what the heck?" And Crush is like, "Oh, let's see what little Squirt can do." And then he comes back in, and he's like, "That's right, my man." He's like, "Yeah, Dad." And so I feel like it makes the reveal even more gas of like, "Whoa, you're a dad? You just let that happen? I thought you were just kind of like a friendly neighbor, but the fact that you're a dad." So it's kind of fun that they hold that reveal.
It is very cool. When you look at actual sea turtle parenthood, it is maybe a little too hands off, because they lay the eggs and they leave the kids and they hatch, and the kids have to race to the shore before the birds pick them off, and the birds are primed and ready, right? And so it is a gauntlet they have to go through in order to survive and get into the ocean.
I mean, that reminds me of another one of my favorite early 2000s animated Under the Sea movie. Have you seen the movie Sammy's Turtle Adventures, maybe? This is another
No,
core. It was like kind of Uncanny Valley animated. Like, it's not any famous studio, but I just remember watching it on, like, I don't know, Netflix, when Netflix went from like DVDs to streaming back in the day, like 2007 probably. And that movie weirdly sat with me, and I watched it a lot. But it opens with that. It opens with Sammy being hatched on the beach and then having to survive Armageddon to get to the water, and all of his brothers being eaten alive.
Sounds like is it Watership Down? Is that the one with the bunnies that people get traumatized by?
I'm not
2D
familiar.
animation? No? Well, I'll have to send that one to you at some point. Is there anything else that you'd like to talk about before we go ahead and close this season?
I thought the idea, just it happened in the pitch room, and they're like, what's funnier than like a shark support group for not eating fish? That's just funny. It doesn't matter if you're 5 years old or 90. That's a funny idea. And so I really loved everything with the sharks. But again, I swore the sharks like played a much bigger role. They were in the movie for maybe 5 minutes, maybe. That's it. But then I loved when he smelled Dory's blood, his eyes went pitch black, and he chased them down. Genuinely terrifying.
It's an impactful sequence, because, I mean, I'm the same way. It was a long time since I'd seen the movie, and one of the few things that I could remember was the shark scene. Because as a kid, like, that is genuinely terrifying. Bruce's toothy grin, right, that stretches the whole of his face, and all those serrated teeth.
It also does a good thing for the structure of the story, because the sharks, I believe, are the first obstacle that Dory and Marlon meet. Like, what a crazy obstacle. Like, arguably in this movie, that should be the big obstacle, but it's the first one they meet. And I think if they had met it and the sharks were just like, "Hey, we don't eat fish. Fish are friends, not food. Okay, go on your way. Sydney's that way." I think it wouldn't have been as impactful, because it's too early in the story for Marlon to be proven wrong. So we start off that, hey, the sea's not as scary as you thought. Even the sharks, even the things that should be eating you by nature, are chill with you. Okay, this journey won't be so scary. But then it ends on the flip side with sharks trying to devour you, and then a nuclear bomb going off right beside you, and you almost dying and getting thrown into a freaking crevasse of darkness. And it just throws the idea forward that Marlin's right. The outdoors are scary. And then we can slowly start to peel it back and show the more nuanced nature of the world. Not everything's hunky-dory and perfect, but there is a lot of beauty out there. So I just think putting that scene there is very interesting and very strategic and smart, rather than making a shark a bad guy that's following them around, and climactic they escape the shark and the shark's just a bad guy, and that's the climax. You put what you think would be the climax at the beginning, and then you flip the lens and make it different. And that was really smart writing.
This movie is very tactfully made, and I think it's good that this movie was a series of events, each with their own challenge, almost episodic, because the point is that the ocean is vast, right? And we want to capture some of that vastness to communicate just how far Marlin is willing to go for Nemo. And I also like how these events were foreshadowed at the beginning, where Nemo is asking all these quote-unquote pie-in-the-sky questions about sea turtles and sharks and whales. And of course, Marlin's like, how could I ever possibly know that? When would I ever possibly encounter these things? And then he does throughout the course of the movie, like one by one. Each question gets answered. And at the end, he's able to tell Nemo how old sea turtles get to be.
You know, you bringing that up, it reminds me, for my One Piece fans out there, Marlin reminds me of the character of Usopp. Usopp tells all these great tales of adventure that he's been on. He's seen goldfish the size of islands, but he hasn't. He's a liar because he's a coward. But then he's forced to go on this journey, and at some point he embraces it and becomes a brave warrior of the ocean. And all the things he kind of talks about becomes true. And so, I don't know, just a little thought there that Marlin and Usopp are kind of similar, both on the ocean.
Well, folks, with being said...
No, wait, I actually did have one last thought. You know how they're doing remakes of Disney movies of live action? If they did do a live action version of Finding Nemo, that would be a genuine horror movie. Imagine it's all practical. It's all real fish.
See, that would be awful. And that's likely what they would do. Because that's what they did with Lion King, is they focused on realism to the detriment of the character design. It's part of the benefit of animation is you get to see these fish be expressive in ways that they can't be expressive in real life, right? Imagine watching clownfish Marlin, real life clownfish Marlin, grieving the loss of his son in the belly of that whale. It wouldn't be nearly as impactful.
This is true. But if it was a real fish and a real whale, that director of photography would get paid so much to get in that whale's tummy. Many lawsuits.
It'd be another Jonah situation. Yeah.
yeah. Go destroy Nineveh. But that was the last thing I wanted to say before we got to our holy moments.
Well, now that we've gotten to the end, let's go ahead and talk about our holy moments. Nathaniel, what was your holy moment?
I'm really excited. I feel like it's been a minute since we've done an episode where the holy moment wasn't brought up in the episode. Like, very briefly. But honestly, I think for me, it's the first 3-4 minutes of the movie. It's the opening. I got done with the opening, the transition from Marlin holding baby Nemo to baby Nemo waking up Marlin, getting ready for school. And I said out loud, what a great opening. What great writing. Because it just does so many things masterfully. You know, it seems simple on page, but what it does is it sets up our characters in a believable way. We get Marlin's whole backstory and the tragedy of why he's a protective parent, and we get his changing character within like 3 minutes, and they do it without a lot of exposition. We get his character, like we said, he's kind of a joking, charismatic asshole, just like a bit with his wife, but he's fun and he's loving, and you can tell he's prideful. He's excited to be a parent. He just got them this. Also, how does real estate work in the Finding Nemo world? I just bought this anemone on the edge with an ocean view. What does an ocean view mean? You live in the ocean, you idiot. Anyways, I digress. But it sets up these characters in ways that doesn't feel like we're drugged through the mud. Like we feel like they're just talking at us. Narration. This is who they are. This is what they think. Like it does a great job of setting up who they are, and then gives us a great turning point in the scene. We talk about this in the episode of Die Hard and other episodes. Every scene needs a turning point. You know, we start off the scene fun, exciting, light. They have chemistry. Merlin and his wife, who I don't remember the name of. I'm going to call her Laura. And it's happy. And then you get this genuinely haunting moment where Marlin comes up from the anemone and you see this this is what I think of when I think of fish. And maybe this shot is what started it all. A lurking giant barracuda just floating in nothing around it, just blackness. And so you get this genuine shift in tone that's horrifying. And then this fish eats the children and eats the wife. Terrifying. And so for all these reasons, it just set up a compelling movie. Like I knew from the moment we got into it what Marlin, the fish was about, what Nemo was going to be about. And what we said over and over again, the story was great for so many reasons, but it's great because they care about the story and the characters' arcs. And the fact that we started so strong with the strong characterizations of the characters, done without bad exposition, I really, really was impressed with that opening scene. So that's my holy moment.
Yeah, no, incredible opening. And I don't know about you, but when I was a kid, I never understood why Coral stood in place and why she darted to the side. I just thought she's being stupid, I guess. But watching it with an adult's eyes, noticing how her eyes dart towards the cave of eggs, and realizing that she made a sacrifice, a willing sacrifice, gives the scene so much more weight. And it gives much more complexity to her character than I really gave her credit for as a kid. And also there's the moment later on in the movie, I forget when exactly, but they cut back to that image of Nemo's damaged little egg. You recall what I'm talking about? I think this might be after Marlin finds out that Nemo has quote unquote died.
Yeah, they do like a whole cutting of like a bunch of shots together. I don't know if that's the scene you're talking about, but continue.
But it really gives weight to the loss that Marlin believes he's experiencing in that moment. My holy moment is similar in that it has to do with just the character work that this movie does and the character arcs that the characters go through. Sounding very repetitive. Marlin in particular, he is so compellingly real, so compellingly insecure, but we see him over the course of this movie be challenged in ways that he has never been challenged before. And he comes out learning how to be a father. He thought that he has been a father to his kid, but he hasn't been a father because, oddly enough, he's been holding too tightly to his son. So letting loose the reins and believing in Nemo, that's my holy moment.
Yeah, I mean, the character work in this movie is stellar. Also, speaking of character work, our two holy moments together, something I'm realizing in this moment even deeper. Because on the surface, oh, Merlin is a coward because his wife died and the world is scary. Of course he's a coward. He doesn't want his son to get hurt. But then I just realized, which is crazy, I didn't think about this beforehand. He's a coward, like you said. The wife saw the eggs. The wife went to protect the eggs. What did Marlin say? Don't do it, honey. Get back in the anemone. They'll be fine. He's not just a coward because something bad happened to his kids and wife. He's a coward. He's ashamed. He has to live with the guilt that his wife tried to protect his children. He didn't. And so there's probably so much shame and guilt going on in his heart. And it's just crazy that that never dawned on me. It never dawned on me as a kid. Like, you think he's a coward because, a scary thing happened to him, so now he's scared of scary things. He is probably more guilt and shame ridden than anything else. This feeling of like, he was a coward all the way back at the beginning of the movie. It wasn't that instant turn him into a coward. He was arguably a coward from then on. And it wasn't that he was just having to deal with, how can I be brave? Dory helped him, I feel like, stop hating himself. Dory came in, was light and life and optimistic and saying not everything is heavy. And he was able to let go of probably some of that shame and guilt. And I wouldn't say that makes it, the movie is super obvious with that story point. But now that I'm thinking about it, I think there was probably quite a bit of that with the fact that his wife sacrificed himself and he didn't.
For sure, this traumatic event not only changed him, it exacerbated certain bad qualities that he had previously. And I feel like that's what trauma often does, is it takes our existing coping strategies and it makes us cope harder.
He's a clownfish who's coping.
Yeah. I love it that he's not funny.
Again, the dad we described, the balding beer gut dad, tries to be funny, but that dad's not funny either.
No, doesn't even get dad humor right.
But really enjoyed Finding Nemo. I really did.
Yeah, I'm going to give it a 4.
I think I'd do the same. I think I'd give it a 4. I think it just does everything well, you know? And it's pretty rewatchable. Like, I'd rewatch this another 3 or 4 years, especially with my kids. It's fun.
Well, folks, we are at the end of our episode. And typically we would spin a wheel, see what movie we're watching next week. But this is the season finale, and so we have no more wheels to spin. We have a bunch of categories that we have to figure out. And so, if y'all have any suggestions, hold on. At this point, would we have already decided? I think we would have already decided on them.
Well, you can send us our suggestions. I mean, there's always room. If you send something we think it's better than what we have, we'll change, or we'll put it into future seasons. The point is, engage with us regardless.
Yes, comment on our videos, on our reels, send us an email. please, please, please send us an email. We want to be talking to you. I mean, what's our slogan? We watch movies with you. Talk about the moments that work, the ones that don't, the moments that reflect truth in unexpected ways. You're an essential ingredient, and we aren't getting enough of you. Be our cans of tuna.
If you send us an email by next week, I'll get into a tank with a fish, and I'll murder it. See if it's blood. We'll see if fish bleed. That's going to be the name of this title of this episode. Do fish bleed?
There's a lot of potential for this to go very wrong for us on the public stage. We might have to release an apology video.
Yeah, like a fish killing me. That's what's going to go wrong. I think I'm going to kill this fish, and then like a minnow eats my brain.
Well, anyway, folks, you can find us on the Holy Moment Podcast YouTube page, Instagram page, Spotify, TikTok. Again, our email is theholymomentpodcast@gmail.com. We love you. Thanks for tuning in. Tune in next time. And with that, stay holy.